And one of the teams that touched the Hawks in that three-team deal we mentioned earlier was the Boston Celtics.
Correct.
Their all-season summary is a little bit different. So they have their stars. Their stars have been extended. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they're going to be around for the long haul. The question for them is how do they build around those pillars? They've gone through some different pieces. Kemba Walker's no longer on the team. They only had one draft pick in this previous draft. Juhan Begarin, I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name, but 45th pick from Paris. So they definitely have some decisions to make. They conducted some trades. They shipped out Kemba Walker, as I mentioned earlier. Moses Brown as well, which for some people I think is a curious decision. Seems like he has a lot of upside, but they do have a lot of bodies that can throw into that center position. So they have options there. And then they bring in Josh Richardson in return. So coming off of a season where his performance was less than ideal, do you guys feel like that was just a product of the situation, or is Josh Richardson just going through a phase where like he's getting exposed a little bit more since he's in a different situation he was in Miami, that's where he had his best years to this point?
I'd say it's probably a combination. Miami obviously does a great job in, building the culture and, building out their role players to put themselves in the best positions to be great. So if you're a guy who builds up your credibility in a system like that and then you get moved, it could be hard to, maintain that, you might not get as much opportunity going elsewhere. You may be asked to do something else that you weren't doing in Miami. I think he definitely has a lot to prove in Boston, and I think he does have a good chance to kind of revitalize, refresh his career, and hopefully turn some heads on his outlook. He's going to get a lot of the way the roster is constructed right now. He's going to get a lot of burn, a lot of minutes, and he's going to be asked to defend some great players on opposing teams and just handle a lot of the workload on the wings because to be blunt, Boston's pretty shallow right now.
They are
in the backcourt. So he's got his work cut out for him, and it should be a great opportunity for him to get back on track.
Absolutely. If you look at the summer league team for Boston, you can see pretty much 3 or 4 guards that are projected to be a part of the rotation for Boston. Guys that they had previously, like Romeo Langford, struggled with injuries. You go through that guard lineup. There's a lot of guys that are going to have opportunities, but it's all about who is going to show themselves to be viable as they go to the future, and they're looking for that spark plug off the bench. Mm-hmm. Speaking of spark plugs, Evan Fournier played that role for them last season. He's no longer on the team. He signed with the Knicks for a 4-year, $78 million deal. So, that leaves the Celtics trying to fill a void, and it's going to be challenging for them to do so. They bring in Cantor, unrestricted free agent. I believe he's on a minimum deal. That's going to help to bring in some of that offense. But defensively, he's been with Boston before. This is his second tour of duty. We know that that's not his strong suit necessarily. So, Ali, if this is you and you're looking to upgrade this team in the future, we know they have Marcus Smart on here. This is a major decision they could make. He could be extended. Mm-hmm. His expiring contract is coming up here. Would you want to bring him back for the long haul? I know he's one of the few pieces you can rely on aside from Tatum and Brown for offensive production and just his overall toughness from night to night.
Yeah, so Marcus Smart is probably the heart of this team. He's the engine of this team. I think he's the leader of this team. And he has a fascinating salary. He's at $14.3 million. Josh Richardson also at 11.6. So I think what the move might be is I think the Celtics front office is probably looking at this. Either they extend him, they use his salary because it's kind of a mid-salary, and they have 2 mid-salaries that they can kind of cobble up, put together, and trade for another piece. And I think that they end up coming to a deal, but I do think that they're probably going to do their due diligence and the phones are going to be working because teams are going to be interested in Marcus Smart, and I think teams are going to be willing to give up a nice package
Decent
for
amount.
Marcus Smart
Most definitely.
because he's gotten better as a shooter. He's obviously a world-class defender, you know, and his improvement in shooting has given him so much value that he, you know, when he acts as a tertiary playmaker, as a secondary playmaker, and in some units he's their primary playmaker. He is so. He's so important and vital to their team that I don't see them letting him go. But I also see that if they see him and Josh Richardson and guys like that to put together, and maybe they're able to take the next step, because obviously the Celtics aren't looking to just make the playoffs. They're a historic franchise. They're looking to win a ring, you know. So I think that's kind of where the I'm sure their front office is probably very divided, in my opinion.
I think so as well.
Yeah.
For sure. So, you know, some of the other questions they're trying to address is like, how do you fill in that void at backup point guard? Like, they have those guys that are playing in Summer League. They have some young guns, but maybe they bring in some veteran help. Like, that's something that I've, you know, in my mind kind of just goes along as like an option for them. And there's guys like Schroeder are still available. Reggie Jackson just re-signed with the Clippers a few days ago, but Elfrid Payton, you know, Knicks fans would say stay away, but, you know, if you're as desperate as the Celtics are for production, you'll look anywhere. But would you go with one of those names, Oliver, or would you bank on that young talent to start to show some signs of consistency?
Yeah, I really like Peyton Pritchard. I like what he brings to the game. His offensive ability. He can score the ball really well, and he's super quick. But, you know, when things start getting tight in close games, and especially, you know, come playoff time, is he the guy that I want on the floor like this upcoming season in crunch time situations? I'm not so sure. So, yeah, as much as I want to see Peyton develop into his role and get more minutes, you know, having just a very solid veteran guard to be able to put in those crunch time situations who you know is going to make the right decision, not do too much, just, you know, be the engine, be the guard that, you know, keeps everything moving. I think they should look at something like that. Not so that would kind of rule out Dennis Schroeder, you know, really dynamic guards like him, just because you don't necessarily want to pay a player like that who you more so want to just be to serve as some stability. So I think if you look at the point guard market right now, there could be some veteran guys that you could bring in to just ensure that, you know, we have that the train is moving on schedule, everything like that. So.
Right. Yep. I agree, especially with the fact that, you know, last year I thought Tatum and Brown were, I know Brown has taken a step as a ball handler and a playmaker, but it hasn't been to the point where they feel comfortable giving him, let's say, you know, 20 plus possessions, pick and roll possessions where he's handling the ball. Maybe this is the year where they might just feel like, okay, we don't need a point guard. We need someone that could just take care of the ball, just like Oliver was mentioning. Maybe like a guy like George Hill, but unfortunately he's ended up in Milwaukee.
George Hill would have been great for them.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, I think, you know, Tatum and Brown have another step to take, and that's really what I'm excited to watch. And that's kind of the only thing that fascinates me about this team. I'll be completely honest, but yeah.
So we've discussed the on-court implications of these guys. We also have to look at the financial aspect. You know, that's something that we love to do here at No Trade Clauses. Break down the salary situations of these teams. Are they close to the tax? Are they a cap team? You know, they're against the apron. And in the Boston's situation, they're definitely up against that salary, that luxury tax line. So they have some tough decisions to make. When you have two guys coming off of they're entering rookie extensions, you know, Tatum and Brown, it creates a dynamic in your cap situation. It's really tough to navigate. You can't make as many decisions as some other teams with more flexibility. You have to be very careful about the players you sign. And for them, it really comes down to, you know, Al Horford is a major factor here. You know, you bring him back to Boston, and, you know, his deal is interesting because, you know, there's non-guaranteed money in this equation for next season. So it just comes down to what they want to do with him, what they want to do with some other options, and if they continue to go down this road of being a contender, you know, tough decisions have to be made, and you have to kind of deal with limited margins and limited space. when you're really trying to go over the hump and get into the finals for the first time.
Yeah.
For sure. And I don't know if you guys remember, but this was there was a lot of buzz around this when the Kemba Walker trade took place, talking about those that non-guaranteed money. But the benchmarks that make it guaranteed are pretty interesting. They're almost built like incentives or bonuses in a contract. I don't remember the exact ones. Maybe you guys could correct me, but I know it has something to do with playoff performance. And I know that he gets his most guaranteed money. It's either if he makes the finals or wins the finals. So obviously, if Boston, starts making a big run at things, that could really change their financial outlook for not only this upcoming season, but seasons to come.
Definitely. And one last point on this, Horford's situation is interesting because you bring him in, Kemba goes out. Initially, when Horford got that big deal from, I believe it was Philadelphia, people saw that as a huge albatross. But now Kemba is the one who has that deal, which is looked at as a major negative asset. Now that's OKC's problem, of course. But, Horford comes back, and it doesn't seem as bad as it was portrayed to be. Of course, it has to do with the non-guarantee. But, point of the story is, things kind of change as the years go on. And now they feel like they're in a situation where Horford is not kind of that pressure on the cap as it used to be. But that pretty much it does it for our first two off-season previews here, off-season summaries. We're going to have more as the week goes on. We're going to be here at the studio for pretty much this entire week for more of these summaries and insights into these teams that are entering the off-season and preparing for the next NBA season. So I want to thank these guys for being a part of the panel. Grateful for the opportunity and really looking forward for the rest of this week, rest of Summer League, as we're back after a short hiatus last year. But thanks everybody for tuning in, and we hope to see you on our next broadcast. So until then, take care and enjoy Summer League.